I once again formally greet you, ladies and gentlemen, to bring you a Cosmonarchy cast. This is Shadu, a new Terran, versus Alexhandr, a returning perpetual new Zerg. Noob. Let's get into it. We're also going to be showcasing a different map here. It's Aegis, a map by Veek7. Pretty cool stuff, actually. Pretty cool stuff to see another map by him. We just saw Catalyst earlier, and also whatever video came before this one, because I'm kind of recording them out of order right now. But yeah, some new maps, indeed, are going to be play-tested frequently. So, Shadu will be our green Terran in the top left. Alexhandr will be our turquoise Zerg in the top right. And as a result of the fact that I just guessed both colors correctly, we'll have a celebration. A celebratory sponsored sip. Join us on Coffee for donating towards project development, and we'll get even more zany, crazy, wacky antics and cool single-player content out there for you guys. You know, not everything's about the competition. This is just one of the many things Cosmonarchy has. Sip. So, as we get a little bit closer to Shadu making first contact with his opponent, he will be scouting that Alexhandr is intending to go Hydrith first. Now, this is not a build order that is, like, entirely made up, that is entirely useless or pointless, but I will point out that if you are going to be harvesting a little bit of extra gas, you want your third worker to be on the ridge as opposed to triple stacking on the geysers. It's a bit inefficient. Alexhandr might not have enough Vespene to go mass Hydra early on. But, you know, that being said, Shadu, I feel like his first structure might have been just a tad late. He is going for a fulcrum start. What is his second structure? It will be a stockade. So the significance now is that Shadu will be keeping a little bit of gas in the bank. I'm predicting a vulture start, but then he might transition from that into maybe a faster palladium or maybe a vestry from the stockade. We'll see what he wants to do. He's actually pretty low on resources. So I haven't actually casted Shadu before. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It might be like Shadow, you know, like it's just two O's and he just wants to be called Shadow, but he spells it weird. You know, there's a famous League of Legends player called Reckless, but he spells his name Rekkles, and it looks like Reckles, and that's how I would pronounce it, even if I was like a professional caster, which is probably one of the many reasons why I am not a professional League of Legends caster. Also, the game is shit. But it's interesting, you know, it's one of those things where you look at it and you think, why would you spell it like that? Probably because you were a dumb kid when you came up with the alias. That's just my idea. But anyway, none of that necessarily applies to Shadu or Shadow. You know, I'm going to keep calling him Shadu, but he can feel free to correct me in the comments or whatever. Now, Alexhandr is sort of meandering around this base. He hasn't been stamped out just yet, and the first military unit is pretty delayed, so it feels like maybe if Alexhandr had been going for that pool opening that we've seen him do in ZVZ against Triple Dash earlier, it's definitely something that I think you look at and you think, damn, that could have been pretty significant. You know, he could have actually had a lot of units in here. So Shadu will be playing a bit more defensively as he banks up a couple of units. It looks like a double blackjack opener. He is going to drop that anchor on the front lines. Alexhandr has had free reign to do whatever he wants. Normally, I would say it really does depend on the build order, but Terran can usually posture very aggressively against Zerg, just as Protoss can do so against Terran in the early game, you know, if they go gateway first, of course. All of that being said, Zerg are usually not the ones doing the containment or the early aggro, and they're usually the ones fighting to maintain some semblance of life with what they've got, and you know, holding on for dear life as to what they can do. So definitely one of those situations where I'm a bit surprised that we still have the... Oh my god, scouting with the blackjack. Oof. You just felt that. I'm a bit surprised that... you know, this is the state of things, because Alexhandr definitely is able to do things that he wouldn't normally do. Now, we did see him mineral block himself by ordering up a bunch of Izira cores. You don't get your money deducted when you start a structure. We don't have the technology for that. So that is definitely something that kind of bopped Alexhandr there. That being said, we are going to see that Palladium, as well as a Scrapyard, which we already saw out earlier. It's going to be full blackjack, and then it looks like a couple of madrigals along with this vestry. One thing to note is that as soon as this Palladium went down, this ministry was consigned to the dustbins of history. It will never build an add-on. So Shadu doesn't really want that. I have seen a couple of like clips of gameplay on this map because sometimes people will stream their games POV and stuff to the Discord channel that we have, the Discord server that we have, and so I have noticed that there is definitely a very choke-heavy design over here. Now Alexhandr at first was going to fall back when he saw the anchor, but actually he thinks that maybe he can just push on forward, and oh no, the anchor blows up and then none of the focus fire goes live on those hydras in the back. And now the Ministry at 99% will start to get heckled. As soon as the first couple of units come out, this should be something that gets contested. You should send a Mason down to see if you can finish it up and, all that stuff as well. Okay, here comes the Madrigal. It should drop deployment there, like kind of at the extremity just to start peppering down these units. But looks like he wants to wait for this first Blackjack, which is now coming out. It's all Shamans as well for the healing. There you go. He's calling him. He's calling on him, and that will be a dive. Yeah, still no Mason to finish that up. You could lift it off after it's finished. Looks like the Hydra count for reinforcements is going to be more than enough, and yeah, they're going to snipe that Mason just before. Again, like, if it had happened during the middle of that fight, that would have been one thing, but it's not even going to get canceled. I think Alexander's just about to kind of step on this poor lad. Oh, lordy. Oh, lordy. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed Alexhandr would do such a thing? He's got mass Hydra, and he is charging fast. He's just going to dive onto that Madrigal. No Phalanxes in sight. Minimal other combat units. And Shadu will almost certainly have to Jeej. We're calling it Jeej now. That's a New Year's resolution. Ooh! Pounced as soon as it spawned. Yep, there you go. All right, Alexhandr, you're up on the set. Will you come away with the overall series victory as we get deeper into the match? And there you go. Jeej indeed. Well, that was definitely, I guess you could call that one a silly game. I was not expecting it to go that way, but we've got two more matches on this map that I will be happy to take a look at here. So let's do that. Looks like we're swapping places, as Alexhandr will be the electric orange Zerg in the top left. Oh, it's vivid orange. And Shadu will be the Zinwaldite brown Terran in the top right. Okay, so I did want to comment a little bit about the map. The geysers being on this side, right open to people walking in. I feel like this choke style, plus the gas being so close, definitely leaves open some opportunities for harassment. And you can't really do anything about moving them over here, because then they'd be at an angle or they'd block the ramp. And if they're at an angle, they're much less efficient for mining. And if they're blocking the ramp, well, that's its own problem. I guess maybe you could shift the ramp down a little bit and then put the geysers over here and it would be fine. But yeah, not a lot of room to relocate. Maybe the map could be expanded to the north to allow the natural to be pushed in a bit more. This might not be a problem at all, but it looks a bit awkward to try to hold, since you have no cliff advantage and you also have no... it's very difficult to actually choke or wall this area up. So, maybe there needs to be some other adjustments made to the map as a result. But it's going to be Hydrith again. Alexhandr sticking to his guns. Remember that his eco is way worse off for going Hydrith first, generally speaking. It can give you some very surprising advantages in the early game, but that last one, Alexhandr didn't take the early game advantage, like with his first couple units. He didn't have any cheese planned or highly technical execution or anything. It was just straight up overwhelming a Terran player who was being a bit greedy with his opening. Now, he is going to be going for double stockade with a Harakan first, so we should see that worker get hunted down by the legendary Ahmed. Shadu will be scouting across the map at the same time, and we'll see that a Larvosk follow-up is nigh. Now, actually, kind of curious, he makes the Hydrith then, but he has been powering on workers this whole time, because perhaps he's not immediately worried about, like, well, I can just order a few extra units, and that'll be enough to kill my opponent, or rather stop him from killing me, would be one way to put it, because I have those more powerful units that come out of the Hydrith then that are required. That require the Hydrith then. So this worker will be chased down by the Harakan. At some point there will be some micro that will allow it, I think. But no, it's actually going to turn back around. We did see a couple of Mavericks over here, so that worker will be shot down. Now we've got a Covenant. Oh, very fast. Double Covenant, it looks like. Oh no, it's Covenant Vestry. Okay. Well, the Priest-Im is fine because he will have a Vestry, so he'll have a Shaman out to heal or whatever. Very interesting he's going for that. I feel like a timing here with Savants could be really nice, but we'll see if Shadu ends up going for that. It's a Fulcrum follow-up, so much more military-minded over here for Shadu. He's not interested in going for a Ministry or anything. He's going to keep it going in that route. So, very cool, very interesting. Second Larvosk on the way for Alexhandr. He's got his 4 gas miners, 3 of them on the geyser, 1 on the ridge. I could definitely use one extra on the ridge. And yeah, with the anchor coming online, it's looking like it will be Eidolons, actually. Shadu sticking it to that. I have seen Shadu play a number of the more like high-level players, so I wasn't really sure what his level would be. It does seem like he's a bit risky in the early stages and does like his anchors. So this obviously slows down your ministry or your natural and all sorts of other such things. Same as in StarCraft 1, when you make a bunker as Terran, it slows down your expo. You want to usually try to make it after the expo is started, but Shadu is looking to do things a bit differently, a bit safer, knows that there's potential bust timings, and to his credit, I mean, nobody really goes Hydrith first as a broad rule and tries to play from it like a standard game, so Alexhandr doing that is showing us a little bit of a different look as to what Zerg might be capable of doing. I know a lot of Zergs have been theory crafting what they can do and such. Oh, an Eidolon in the anchor. So he's really maximizing cliff advantage plus anchor advantage. So a while ago it was +2 shooting down a cliff, but now cliff advantage gives you +1 per height difference. So for example, if this Maverick wandered over here, anything shooting it from the cliff would get +1 weapon range compared to what they normally get. So for example, this Maverick has 5 range, but it would shoot with 6. Now when you're in an anchor, you get +2. So that's a total of +3, which means that the Maverick would have go from 5 range to 8 range, or the Eidolon would go from, I believe, 8 range to 11 range, which is pretty good. So yeah, maybe it's 9 range and it goes to 12 range. I can't quite remember, but I think it was only 8 range. And it might even be less than that. Who knows? Not me, apparently. It's going to be a ski-backed scab from Alexhandr. He's sticking it out on one base. Same, it could be said for Shadu, but he is actually making a ministry, just not on location. So Alexhandr is going to have to commit up the ramp if he wants to confirm that information. I do like Shadu scouting with his Maverick. He's going to go ahead and stem it into the natural, it looks like. I love him pre-stimming as well, just to make sure. When you scout no natural here, you should be expecting some kind of more cheesy, aggressive-oriented play. And actually, because of the way that timings work at these lower levels of gameplay, in terms of skill, what you're going to be seeing out of this is, you kind of hope Shadu doesn't scout the hatch later, because then he's just going to think, oh, he took his expo later, and he's not going to realize that there's the potential for a move out. But now his scout will get killed in advance. He will be informed that he is under assault, or soon to be under threat. There's going to be a 4th Eidolon in that anchor, so Alexhandr shouldn't be able to just make it in for free, and we do have the deployed Shaman, which is going to go ahead and keep things somewhat healed. Lifting the ministry as soon as it's ready. It will float on over. Oh, Alexhandr. Oh, yeah, that was... No, I guess that was a fake hash. Well, anyway, we're going to see, because Alexhandr said he reviewed these. So this ministry is going to go ahead and drop itself at the natural at some point. We do have a Talos here, which is kind of a neat little addition. The quarry does give you that extra worker, but the workers do cost Vespene, right? So that's a potential point of consternation. Now, the Hydras are going to be heckled here as the ministry is taking fire, but you can see the Eidolons popping off with their extended range, and here comes the Talos to attempt to repair. At this point, it should try to fly back. It doesn't look like it's going to. Alexhandr really committing a lot of forces to try to kill that. He's already lost 3 out of his minimal Hydra count, in all honesty. And here comes the Cyclops, the one Savant in the backdrop, helping to penetrate some of these more frontline-oriented units. There is a Cyprian out here, but it is on a move command onto that Maverick, so that's a little bit awkward. It doesn't end up doing much. Instead, the units get wiped. Alexander's checking about the hash style. Okay, it looks like everything is just fine. And Alexhandr is going to go ahead and saturate his natural a little bit with those 6 idle workers. You know, typing means you're not using your keyboard and mouse for actions. You know, just saying. That all being said, we are talking about a sort of more mixed follow-up here with Cyclops for crowd control, as well as the Cyprians. One of them is still on a move command, by the way. Maybe that'll get rectified later. I think it's because the rallies are actually on move, right? Yeah, so it's like a follow command, right? All right, it's going to be 9 Hydras and some static defense here for Alexhandr. He does have a bunch of Hydras ready to rock. And it looks like with his Kagrins coming out here, and the Quazeth pool coming out as well, he's looking to maybe add a lot of chaff to his military force very, very close, very, very quickly. I do like the Talos harvesting Vespene. It is more efficient at that than the... I mean, it's more efficient at general resource harvesting than the Mason. So, you know, you get your most bang for your buck when you saturate the gas. Doesn't really look like Shadu is doing that, though. Instead, he's going to continue producing Bio, a Savant here and there for that backline penetration that goes through even the Izira core, which the Cyprian does not penetrate unless a Hurakan is there to rend the armor. There is one Hurakan. Looks like he'll switch into... what did he switch into? Power Siphon. Yeah, to drain the attack speed of his victims and empower himself. So... depending on how long that bad boy stays alive, we could end up seeing a significant number of successful stolen shots. Let's just say that. You're going to see, like, whatever is being debuffed take some damage. Yeah, it is 9 range. So, yeah, the Eidolons and the Anchor have 12 weapon range. Definitely very, very good at, like, a hyper-specialized defensive emplacement. And, you know, allowed that Ministry to stay out of too much harm's way. Now, Alexhandr has defaulted to going straight into the Vornath, so he's really double-dipping on tier 1.5, we call it. Sort of a midway upgrade between where he's at tier 1 and where you could be at tier 2 if you invested your gas into that. The Anchor full Eidolon is actually moving to 12 o'clock. We'll see if it ends up getting discovered. This is a pretty reasonable Zerg force, and without the Eidolons, there might be an option here for the Anchor to get bopped. It doesn't look like Alexhandr recognized that, or if he did, yeah, okay, he was actually going to go ahead and scout it. He's making some Bactals now. I do worry about Bactalisks versus this army. You are going to see 11 range Eidolons instead of 12 because they are down on the low ground, by the way. And so with the Shamans out, I guess the Shamans are going to help negate the Bactalisk bounces to some degree, but I'd still be a little bit concerned if the number goes anything beyond what we already have. Or if, like, the army kind of gets caught out of position, like is seemingly about to happen right now, as soon as the Bactalisks come out. Now, Alexander's pushing the go button. I feel like a stim on those Mavericks would really help out. I heard a lift of something, I thought, but it doesn't look like it. Instead, that Anchor is going to go ahead and continue to get repaired by the Taluses, and it is walloping away at the Zerg in the back. Sure, yeah, you're grinding through the rest of it, but with all the Hydras getting popped, it does feel to me like this could be a big swing. Now, as I'm saying that, the Anchors are going to get overwhelmed by all of the Zethra-cores, and a lot of the units in the back over here not exactly helping out with the fight. They were on a hold position. They are going to clear out all the Zeths, so maybe there's still a chance here as a Harakan bravely charges the Bactalisks, and that will actually be a full wipe of the military force here. He's got more Hydras coming in, but he's only got Hydras so far as combat units are concerned, and Shadu is indeed going to need to dive forward with a couple of more military units. He would love a couple extra production structures right now. He's lost his Eidolons. He's got one in the back line there. And Alexhandr has a ridiculous amount of money, so he's going to go ahead and take a third. He's going to try to take a fourth. He's going to charge forward and disrupt the harvesting, or construction rather, of this ministry, which is sort of like a pseudo wall right now. That's a lot of money that's down the drain for Shadu. He has a lot more, but not as much as Alexhandr. Alexhandr has a ridiculous amount. We know Alexhandr likes to float, you know, focusing all of his attention on the war, and then he's like, oh yeah, there's like a whole other part of the game that was going on that whole time. Would love to see these Masons get tasked on to something, but I think they are also on a follow command? No, I guess not. I don't know what's going on there. But we are going to see Shadu struggle to hold this follow-up attack, it looks like. The Eidolons are coming out. He does order those Masons to work, but it might be a little bit too little too late. I mean, he had plenty of money. He just needed more production structures. Now, this force might still have a little bit of a difficult time breaking through. I mean, the Blackjacks are here. It does feel like they're going to overwhelm. Yeah, they sniped the Shaman. Is that going to be enough? They pick off the Talus as well. I will say the supportive units for Shadu have really disrupted Alexander's focus fire, but now we're talking about that Cyprian could be big, and a Cyclops coming out as well, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too significant there. Oh, the Cyclops shell even assisting in the demise of that Eidolon. There's the one Blackjack bravely trying to defend, an Anchor being remaxed here. Oh my god. So many dead Masons that Shadu is, I think, clearly overwhelmed a bit. I mean, both players having a ridiculous amount of money. Shadu's like, yes, bro, I'm dying to them. Don't rub it in. Maybe he was helping, you know, Alexhandr being helpful. The Cyclops even getting a residual kill there. It does feel like Shadu is getting overwhelmed, for sure. I mean, he's got so much money in the bank, and his production is mostly idle right now. Yeah, the Zeth Flood afterwards seems to have sealed the deal, and I think Alexhandr might have just noobed his way to victory. He lifts it at the last second, though. He's safe. That's all he needed to do. Mission successful. Task failed successfully. More Zeths flooding in. There are Zerg here. Maybe Shadu wanted to play Helldivers or something, and that's what he's thinking he's doing. He's got one hero, Ahmed, with 14 health. It died. Goodbye, Ahmed. You were too pure for this world. I mean, surely this is the thumbnail too, you know? It's like, it's just Zerg here. There's Zerg everywhere. What a brutal defeat of a man. He's got one more chance to defend his legacy. His RTS legacy is on the line. No, I'm just kidding. I died to Lings, LOL. Alexhandr like, oh, okay. Yeah, you know what, Shadu? Yeah, he's going for another one. Let's see what's behind door number 3. Shadu being down on himself. I wonder how he does versus, like, I feel like Protoss would be harder. I feel like Protoss would be harder to deal with if you're trying to be a little bit finicky about the openers or whatever. But I don't know. I wonder how his TVP is. Anyway, let's see what's behind that third game. All right, so far we haven't seen too much of the map in play as the players have mostly ignored the bottom strip. But Alexhandr did start to take a third and a fourth in that last game. I mean, Lord knows he had the money. It's going to be Shadu in the top left as what I'm going to call the Ultramarine Terran. And Alexhandr in the top right, once again rocking the vivid orange. I won't fall for that trick again, Alexhandr. I'll be looking at your text color in the top right that indicates your name and APM. Don't look at the APMs, by the way. But, you know, as I say that, Shadu is going to... I mean, this is like the beginning of his chronicle. I know he's been playing Cosmo for a little bit, but this is like the start of his growth as a player. You know, we're gonna see him, like, for maybe, you know, one of the things I think is a commonality among players on the lower end, smash, is that they smash, obviously. That's why they're not super good at Cosmo. They're too busy having so much smash. But I will say that... oftentimes they don't look at the replays. I think Alexhandr is technically an exception to this because he has watched the replays back to validate them and submit them for cast. But most of the newcomers don't really look at their own game. They don't really spectate their own matches. And also maybe they just don't have enough background information on like general RTS gameplay or specific RTS gameplay to like this game that they like. Shadu clearly knows certain things. Like he's saturating his gas better than Alexhandr is, where he like puts 2 on each node as opposed to 3 on one and 1 on the other. And so that's definitely, even in this game, it's actually apparent right now as we see Alexhandr going for that pool opener into a Larva. So a bit more standard play that also might tip the scales back in Shadu's favor. But the one thing I would say about overall what I'm seeing from Shadu is that you know, maybe a little bit of understanding of like, oh, when do I need military versus when do I need to look to expo? And like, when does my opponent have threat on me? That's another thing where Alexandr's strange Hydrith-oriented playstyle really kind of probably threw a wrench, you know, threw a, what is the term? A monkey wrench into the plan or something like that. Anyway, I can't remember it for now. But yeah, definitely foiling his plans to do some serious moves. Oh no, Ahmed is trying to claim the life of your worker. But don't worry, it went right through. Fast deaths are going to be scouted out, but there's already a Huracan to deal with that, and it is triple stockade with the worker going down. A little bit of damage done to Ahmed. We're going to see whether Shadu can handle that. You know, this is exactly the kind of like the thing that I'm talking about, right? So, a concrete example. The Zeths are here. There's another one spinning. They could be moving across the map, but Alexhandr has decided to withhold them because he's worried about Ahmed, I guess. Because the logical assumption you would make is that as Terran... oh, I'm going triple stockade, I have 1 combat unit, and my opponent I just scouted has a bunch of Zeths, and they killed my scout with it. So I think it's safe to say, logically, that you should not waste production time on an add-on, especially since that add-on is going to make you support units, and instead you should make more units in case you need to hold the Zeth flood. Assuming that's what's happening, because you already scouted 3 eggs being used, 3 larvae being used on Zeth. So I say all of that not as like a you know, this is such an obvious move, you're a dummy for not noticing it. It's more like, that's something that I think most players would look at and say, scout their opponent going for Zeths, and then say, let's be safe, and order a few more units before I get my add-on. But Shadu does go for his fast anchor, so to some degree he is a little bit safe. I still think those Zeths would have done a lot of damage. And you don't lose anything by keeping them, by sending them out, because there's no risk that the Terran can do to you. Now, at this time, the Zeth flood is coming on in, and maybe he still won't have that many units. Well, he does have a Cyprian out. It's not going to be able to get into the anchor, unfortunately. And those Mavericks are not stimmed inside that anchor either. They are going to help to burst down some of these units. There's the stim coming out. He is going to have to pull away from the Zets, and he will gun down the initial Zerg units. We've got 2 more Mavericks and a Shaman being made. And there are some more Quas over here that could just muscle up this ramp, but it doesn't look like Alexhandr wants to do that. He's going to wait for the Zeths to come. Now, if we can get another anchor up for Shadu, that would be great. It does seem like he's stopped worker production in the interim. Jesus. And he's going to go ahead and drop the Shaman so that he can make sure to heal his units preemptively. Now, yeah, that is one of those things where if you don't have the necessary, like if you don't have the stim micro to like unload the anchor, stim, and then re-enter, you're going to have a hard time breaking through all of the meat of those Zets. So this Maverick is going to go ahead and stim and get out of dodge. He's going to bring with him a number of Zets, and Alexhandr is probably going to be very confused when he sees that, but he didn't see that now. So it didn't ping him when a unit showed up in his vision. So I guess it's just, the units don't exist. A couple Cyprians coming up, but one of them is on a rally and only gets one shot off. Now this one in the back has been healed by quite a bit between the Cleric and the Shaman. The Shaman getting a lot of armor from that Cleric as well, really helping out. And wow, Shadu will hold almost with ease. Where did that Maverick end up going? Getting tracked down there by 4 Zets. I don't know that they would have made much of a difference there, but yeah, okay, Shadu is just fine for now. He's going to go ahead and drop that anchor. Remember, Alexander's whole time while he's doing this, he's not making workers, right? He's starting to add a few more now. But Shadu scouts no expansion. He scouts that he didn't get into the base, so he doesn't know how many production structures are there. But he should be somewhat confident in his capabilities now to hold Alexander's pool-based aggression. He did not scout any other units. I don't know if his camera ever went over there to see what his Maverick was revealing to him, but we saw that we could see Alexhandr has no other units. One thing that would be really nice for Shadu is if you put these 2 Cyprians in there. They are much more reliable inside an anchor. And I guess the Cyclops work too as well, but I do worry about their ability to just kill all of the bio units with their friendly splash. But hey, that's what the Shamans are for. And there's a lot of units queued up, and we could see more units being made instead. But again, I actually don't think Alexhandr can just win the game by running up the ramp this time. He is going to have to expand, and so he does. He does. Looks like Shadu wants to make sure to kick his opponent out of his territory. He will go ahead and step out. The anchor will most likely float down to the low ground, which might be a little bit more attackable. But again, with the pool units, I don't think Alexander's going to have as much power here. The one Maverick going to step forward and see, okay, you still have units like soft containing me. This is the kind of thing that, realistically speaking, Terran shouldn't ever have to deal with because of the way that the matchup usually flows, where they are able to either like be impenetrable in the early game or like just shrug off the assaults of the enemies. But that does usually come in from having like more production structures, more tempo to your movements. And a lot of that is down to the workers. Shadu hasn't made a worker in a very long time. And so that's definitely going to bite him in the rear end as the workers are already starting to mass up. 8 more in production here for Alexhandr. He is going to have a 11 worker lead on his opponent. So that will certainly underscore the point that I am making, right? So we've got another Cyprian. We've got a couple of Harakans. I like that. If you can get a lot of Harakans out, that can help versus the pool armies for sure. We are going to get a ski back, so I'm guessing it's going to be Bactalisks again. There's 7 pairs of Zeths on the way to flood even more. Why not? Yeah, okay, so overall, Shadu is looking like he's got a strong army. This army could definitely muscle this out and then just start moving across the map. A good Zerg could obviously like pull their army back, and instead of dogging the army on its way to the enemy base, they can threaten a backstab, and then you're going to need some extra defensives and stuff like that. Ministry's going to go ahead and land, and as it does, that Zeth will be unburrowed and be forced to contend with death. Plenty of Zeths on their way. But again, the pool units are not going to be very useful right now. It's actually a bunch of Izira cores being made, and then there's the Hydras. Okay. He's got a lot of gas in the bank, and he saturated the minerals over here as well. Definitely still no saturation on those very, very important ridges, you know? Like, he's triple saturating, oversaturating on the gas. He's got one guy on the ridge over here and none over here, so just saying. Just saying. Okay, so Alexhandr is going to continue his push out with the Izira cores. He's thinking about grabbing a 3rd base, sending a worker over there to do just that. I think he's not gonna have the money to do it immediately, but we'll see when he actually recognizes it. Oh, not too shabby, Alexhandr. You put it in the wrong spot, but not too shabby. Unfortunately, he will end up losing an Izira core for his troubles. Perhaps a little bit more than just one as well. Remember, no Bactalisks are here yet, so even though he's getting a lot of good splash damage onto the backline there, I mean, the Shamans were there to heal. Only one of them is alive now, but that's like a total wipe of the Zerg, and so we'll see what Shadu wants to do in response to that. I really don't like his mine placement. That could have been disastrous if more units came in, and like all of these could have been stunned, but you know, it's okay. It's all right. The mines did not trigger. Now, will Shadu move across the map is the question. There's one Bactalisk being made. One. That's all he had left is one Hydra after all of that. He will make one Bactalisk. And, you know, Shadu's thinking about it, but instead he's going to go ahead and drop a mine and scout with a Vulture. He should definitely be moving across at the very least to cancel the 3rd base, right? His Vulture's going to get deep enough to see, oh, okay, you've got some units, but no defenses. I think at that point, yeah, you move across the map. Your army is way bigger than the Zergs. Now, you don't know what's hatching in those eggs, but even if it was all, you know, a bunch of more units, you're probably still going to be able to deal with that. The one Bactalisk does reveal itself. There are no more in production. There's a lot of circuits, however. And once those get set up, that could be a bit of a problem. But even still, the army's really, really good for Shadu. He'll at least go ahead, come down and step on this Hatteros. That will force all of the static defense to be for naught as Shadu, you know, basically comes in to step on this base. Alexhandr will have to make a decision whether or not he wants to try to deal with it or do anything about it. The answer right now seems to be no. He's just going to go ahead and concede it. Cyclops doing a lot of friendly fire. It's a good thing there's a Shaman and a couple clerics in here. All right, now he's going to see if he can step forward, and the mines have been pretty good. A couple of the Cyprians getting caught is very unfortunate for our Terran player. He is going to continue to fight in front of those mines. I'm not sure if Alexhandr is actually savvy about that. He's definitely falling back as if he knows where they are. Maybe the Vulture actually planted them within his vision. The Zero-Cores are getting chewed up right now. They're doing a lot of good damage to the bio, so it looks like this will still be taken care of, but you know, one of the Hurakan's not actually in the fight. Some of these units falling back or whatever. We got more units massing up over here. I don't like this army comp so far. We definitely need more Hurakans. And it feels like with no Phalanx and no Blackjack, there's no raw damage. Like, the Mavericks are going to be pretty good, but they haven't been being stimmed in these armies. The Goliath coming out, that's not terrible, but it feels like you need way more than just one. That stun is just going to slow this army's advance. Very, very tight chokes over here, of course. Where's the Psy Storm when you need it? And once again, I think even though Alexhandr loses his second base and Shadoo's caught back up in the worker count, he hasn't saturated the gas in his natural, so he doesn't actually have the ability to contend with his opponent gas-wise. Alexander's actually pretty close to being able to afford tier 2. He is going to go ahead and dive forward. The Cyprian count is high enough that these Zets are not going to be able to do too much of anything. Zero-Cores are definitely preventing the splash damage from hitting things like the Hydras and stuff, but as of right now, I mean, there's not even any healing left over for Shadoo's army, so I think that, like, the one Shaman he still has is down here with 3 Cyprians, which could at least station themselves over here to kill that Droleth, but, you know, it is what it is. 7 Bactalisks being mutated on the doorstep of Shadu. This is one of those situations where it's actually really difficult. If you get attacked as this is happening, you basically have to cancel that. I say that, but actually I'm not 100% convinced that Shadoo's army would kill what Alexhandr has, even notwithstanding the eggs. He has started to incorporate a lot more Hurakans, which is good, but again, he doesn't have really consistent damage right now. The Goliaths need to get, like, in the middle of the battle. They're very good versus air, of course. Then you're talking about the lack of Eidolons, lack of Blackjack, lack of crowd control through Phalanx. You got the Cyprians, that's definitely good. Let's see what can happen over here. The Cyprians are doing their best, but a lot of the Hurakans were already chewed up immediately. The Goliath getting brought down, no healing, no sustain, no armor boosting, no ant seals. There's really nothing here for Shadu. It looks like he's going to get overrun again. The Bactalisks being the key to the end of all things. And that will be another wipe, yeah. I do think Shadu would benefit really, really massively from either incorporating a heavier amount of, like, Eidolon or Savant earlier on, or, again, Blackjack for damage, Phalanx for damage. These are some of the things that you can definitely try to do. But as of right now, Alexhandr is going to reign supreme. Zerg are here. And there's not really anything our homie can do. With all that said, he tried. He fought him. He gave him a couple of licks. And I guess we got to see some Hydrith action as well. Hydrith-themed openers, which we don't normally see. But if this isn't demonstrative representation that Protoss is OP, I don't know what is. Nerf Toss is my takeaway from this. And I hope that you guys enjoy some newbie casts. We'll be probably, I'm trying to think. I don't know what's coming next, but expect more videos soon, regardless. And, yeah, my favorite. Mass back. GG, boys. That's going to be it for us. And, yeah, pretty much it. So, GG. See you later.